Have you ever heard of a battle so devastating? It haunted an emperor to his dying day. A defeat so total, it stopped the world's greatest empire dead in its tracks. This is the story of the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, a clash that changed the course of European history forever. In the year 09 AD, the Roman Empire was at the zenith of its power. Its legions, the most disciplined and formidable fighting force on the planet, had conquered vast territories from Britain to the Middle East. Emperor Augustus ruled over a sprawling empire, and his sights were set on the wild, untamed lands of Germania, east of the Rhine River. To pacify and Romanize these new territories, Augustus appointed a seasoned and trusted politician, Publius Quinctilius Varus. As the governor, Varus was an experienced administrator, but he wasn't a battlefield commander. He arrived in Germania with 3 of Rome's finest legions, the 17th, the Teutoburg, and 19th along, with auxiliary troops and cavalry. A force totaling nearly 20,000 men. Varus believed the Germanic tribes were slowly but surely accepting Roman rule. He levied taxes, enforced Roman law, and treated the local chieftains as subjects of the empire. What he didn't realize was that beneath the surface of compliance, a storm of rebellion was brewing, and at the center of this storm was a man Varus, considered a friend and a trusted ally. His name was Arminius. A prince of the Carusi tribe, Arminius had spent his youth in Rome as a noble hostage. He was granted Roman citizenship, learned Latin, and even served as a commander of Germanic auxiliary troops in the Roman army. He knew Roman military tactics, inside and out. He understood their strengths, and more importantly, he understood their weaknesses. While smiling to Varus's face and dining at his table, Arminius was secretly uniting the fiercely independent Germanic tribes, forging a conspiracy to drive the Romans out of their lands for good. In the autumn of 09 AD, as Varus was preparing to march his legions back to their winter quarters west of the Rhine, Arminius put his plan into motion. He fed Varus false intelligence about a minor tribal uprising in a remote area, convincing the Roman governor to take a detour through unfamiliar and difficult terrain. Varus, trusting his loyal Germanic advisor, walked right into the trap. The route Arminius chose was a nightmare for a Roman army. It led them through the dense, dark, and marshy Teutoburg Forest. The Romans were used to fighting on open plains where their disciplined formations could dominate. Here, their long column, stretched out 4 miles along a narrow, muddy track, was incredibly vulnerable. To make matters worse, a torrential storm broke out. The rain turned the path into a quagmire, soaking the soldiers' heavy leather shields and rendering their bows useless. This was the moment Arminius had been waiting for. Onis signal the forest erupted. Thousands of Germanic warriors, who had been hiding in the trees and behind earthen ramparts they'd secretly built, unleashed a furious assault. They hurled javelins and spears down upon the trapped and disoriented Roman column. The Romans were caught completely by surprise. Their disciplined formations broke apart in the chaos. The narrow path prevented them from forming a proper battle line. They were fighting not just the enemy, but the terrain, the mud, and the driving rain. Carts got stuck, soldiers slipped and fell, and communication between units became impossible. It was less a battle and more a slaughter. For 3 agonizing days, the Romans fought a desperate, running battle. They tried to build a fortified camp at night, but the relentless attacks gave them no rest. The Germanic warriors knew the forest like the back of their hands, using guerrilla tactics to strike and fade back into the woods, causing maximum damage with minimum risk. The legionaries trained for open warfare, where il place. Varus saw the situation was hopeless. His legions were being cut to pieces. His men were exhausted, and there was no escape. Rather than face the humiliation of capture, Varus and several of his high-ranking officers fell on their own swords. With their leadership gone, the remaining Roman resistance collapsed. The aftermath was a scene of pure carnage. Almost the entire Roman force of nearly 20,000 men was wiped out. The proud Eaglestha, sacred standards of the 17th Teutoburg and 19th legions were captured by the victorious tribes, a deep and symbolic shame for Rome. The Germanic warriors showed no mercy to the survivors. Roman historians like Tacitus describe horrific scenes of torture and ritual sacrifice at sacred groves. When news of the disaster reached Rome, it sent shockwaves through the empire. The emperor, Augustus, was said to have been driven to the brink of despair. He reportedly banged his head against the walls of his palace, crying out, "Quinctilius!" He let his hair and beard grow for months as a sign of mourning. The numbers of the 3 lost leads and 19 were considered so unlucky that they were never used again in the Roman army. In the years that followed, the Romans launched several punitive expeditions into Germania, led by the brilliant general Germanicus. They inflicted heavy defeats on the tribes and even managed to recover 2 of the 3 lost legionary eagles. Germanicus defeated Arminius in several battles, but he could never fully subdue the region. The cost in men and resources was simply too high. Ultimately, Emperor Tiberius, who succeeded Augustus, decided to cut his losses. He recalled Germanicus and established the Rhine River as the permanent frontier of the Roman Empire. The dream of conquering and Romanizing Germania was abandoned forever. The Battle of the Teutoburg Forest was more than just a military defeat. It was a turning point in history. It halted the relentless eastward expansion of the Roman Empire and ensured that the lands east of the Rhine would develop their own distinct cultures and languages, separate from the Latin-speaking Roman world. This Rhine-Weser Germanic culture would eventually evolve into what we know today as German, Dutch, and English. Arminius, the mastermind of the ambush, became a legendary hero, a symbol of Germanic resistance against foreign domination. He was eventually killed by his own people, who feared his growing power. But his legacy endured. He is remembered as the liberator of Germania. So, the next time you look at a map of Europe, think about that dark, rainy forest in 090, a place where a cunning tribal prince outwitted a global superpower, where 3 of the world's most feared legions were utterly annihilated, and where the course of history was changed by a perfect storm of betrayal, terrain, and tribal fury. The ghosts of the Teutoburg Forest remind us that no empire is invincible, and that the will to be free can overcome even the most daunting odds. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more epiteles from history. See you in the next video.